So I may have just talked to myself for like 5 minutes. Uh, OBS just came out with a new update. And it has like built-in stream management now, which I think is kind of a trickle down from Streamlabs OBS, which has had stuff like that for a while now. And I clicked the start stream button in OBS, but I looked over in YouTube Studio just now after running and getting my food and doing an intro thing and all this stuff. And it said, start stream. So, yeah, I think I just talked to myself for like 5 minutes. Anyways, we're gonna start over then. Apologize if I'm repeating myself. Hello, Mr. T. Today, wiring up the new board. Or finishing the wiring of the new board. So, on Monday, wired up all the rows, wired up all the columns, and had this galaxy brain idea to use that so that I could pull in the wires from the other side and kind of cinch it to center these to kind of measure empirically how long these wires need to be. Instead of trying to guess or whatever, have too long or too short and have to redo things. So today's task is to wire this up to the nice Nano, and then also build my firmware. So you'll have to excuse me, I've been up since 8:30 this morning. I haven't eaten anything, so my lunch is here. I'm going to be kind of eating while I go. Hopefully the noise cancellation will make it so you don't have to hear my ASMR eating noises, but if you're like, dude, seriously, I can't stand the chomping anymore, let me know, and I will mute the mic when I take a bite. So one of the things that I was thinking about is with ErgoGen, you specify in your rows and your columns what matrix what do they call it? The matrix or the column grid or column bus, something like that. You specify which column is which, and so it kind of like automatically generates, I'm assuming, the connection, like the schematic connection to connect a certain row or column to the controller pin. And ZMK and QMK both need that same information. So I was like, well, maybe you could generate that shield configuration from your ErgoGen file. So I'm gonna try to do that at some point in the future. Take a look into it. It's not gonna be today. Today is gonna be wire this up, get the firmware done, and get out, because I'm going on a little mini vacation, I guess. I don't know, vacation is kind of a strange distinction at this point, since I don't work. I'm kind of always on vacation, but this is kind of work. Anyways, I'm taking a couple days and going to Central Oregon and hanging out by a river and relaxing. It's gonna be nice. So, you know, not gonna rush through this, but not gonna probably stick around too long after I'm finished those two things. So, hopefully I get to them in a reasonable time frame. Let me take a bite of my sandwich, so it's staring me in the face. So what we have left to do on this board, on this build, is I gotta bring in the column wires from this side. And then we got to do the 4 rows. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the column wires in, solder everything, and then do the rows. That's the idea anyways. Because the rows I can just pick from, you know, because I've got 2 on one side and 2 on the other. So I can just grab them from here. It'll be fine. Yeah, so let's get cracking on that. Grab some wire here. Those are not the snips I'm looking for. These are... Whoops. I gotta remember not to clip that right down to the box, because then I have to go dig in the box for the end. Oh, you can't see that. Okay. This might be a little short. But I need a red elsewhere, so I'm gonna keep that. And then just go a little bit longer here. Pinch that down. Okay. So I didn't end up ordering my wire strippers yet because I'm going to be out of town. And I didn't feel like being, you know, trying to figure out how I'm going to get it while I'm gone or timing. So I'll just order it on Saturday on my way back or something like that. And then I'll have it Monday. Column. Okay. So I'm still using these wire strippers, or this wire stripper, which actually, it works decently, I guess. It could be better, but works decently. Also, I just finished printing 30 of these little stands. This little keyboard stand, this size. I've got 4 different sizes that I printed up as like a test. This was the one that I went with for like most general purpose things. So I printed up 30 of them. They're still sitting on the printer bed because my bed doesn't like to release things for a while, which is fine. Plus, I'm not in a hurry to get at them. I printed up 30 because I wanted more than one for myself. And I figured, hey, if somebody else wants one, I'm happy to print that for them too. So the Portland Keyboard Club, I was like, hey, does anybody want some of these stands? We'll print them for tacos. So now I have some tacos in my future. And some people have some stands in their future. Tacos and keyboard stands are good. Whoops. Okay. Red, yellow, green. As you can tell, this is super scientific measurement of these wires. But that's okay, because it doesn't need to be exact or even remotely close, because I just trim off the excess. Come on. Yes, I know my nice nano is in the way. It doesn't need to be there. Alright, let's try to smoosh that down a little bit. Okay. Cool. So that part's done. I'm gonna grab another bite of my sandwich. And some fries. No, this is not going to turn into a Watch Kitchen Eat stream. Or channel. Normally I wouldn't do this, but I wanted to get started streaming. And I'm hungry. And there's a red wire in front of my face. Sorry about that. Ah. So regarding my trip to Central Oregon, I'm coming back Saturday morning. So I'm gonna be late. I'm probably gonna get started around 1. But I'll schedule a stream before I leave. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, like in terms of stream on Saturday. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be some ZMK work where I do like... Oh. Things. Hello, Patricio. Patricio or Patricio? I'm guessing Patricio, but I'm terrible at pronunciation. Sorry. Because I don't know if that's Spanish because of Ramirez or Italian because of Patricio. So my apologies. Okay, let's put these through here. I should have done this the other way around. Let's try it this way. What I want to do right now is cut these to length. Excuse me. And I figure the best way to do that is to do this, which kind of measures how long they, they need to be, and then I cut them to length. So since the black ones here are the shortest, but they seem to be a reasonable length, and also because these aren't routed super cleanly right now, I think cutting them to the length of the black wire is a good length. Oops. And there we go. Now the question is, do I put the wires through this way and solder it? Rather this way and solder it? Or do I put the wires through this way and solder it? And I think I'm going to come up from the bottom. Although that is going to make it a little harder to stuff this down. But that's fine, because we'll deal with it. And I think I am probably going to move these 2 wires. But we'll see. For now, let's get these all stripped up. And I'm going to pull these ones out of the way here, so I don't get confused, because we have duplicate colors across the sides. So red goes into this pin here, the top one. Oh, that might be the end of the music. So the little PCBs that are on the switches are called PC babies. You can get them from Board Source. They're very similar to... There's another PCB like this called the Amoeba, which I think is kind of the original single switch PCB. The reason I went with these over the Amoebas is because they have hot swap sockets, or support for hot swap sockets, which is important to me because the whole idea of hand wiring this and doing it this way with a 3D printed case is that I can pull the guts out of this keyboard and transplant it to the next iteration of this case without having to design a PCB, order it, wait for it to arrive, put the switches in. You know, it just increases the iteration, or accelerates the iteration cycle. Because, like, getting PCBs, or designing the PCB and printing, like, once I have the original or the initial PCB, modifying it should not be that difficult. I'm guessing, just total guess. Modifying it should not be that difficult. But the agonizing wait time for JLC or all PCB or something to print up my PCBs, you know, and then it's like $30, whereas this is probably, you know, $1 or $2 worth of plastic and time on a 3D printer I own. So, although I will say, this is the primary reason I bought the 3D printer. So there's that cost associated with it as well. But I've also gotten a lot of other use out of the 3D printer. So it's not like I bought the 3D printer just for this project and I'm gonna do nothing else with it ever. To answer your question again, because I'm pretty sure I did, but just to make sure I did, these are PC babies. They're just a single switch PCB. Board Source prints them up. There's a bunch of different ones. So there's some that have like RGB support, and there's some that are soldered on and stuff like that. But I chose these because I could buy them. I didn't have to order PCBs. You know, I didn't have to get some made up. And because they had hot swap sockets. There are some things I would change about them. So I may do my own version of them. Mostly what I would change is make the connections between the columns and the rows much more solid. Because the only thing connecting them right now is this little teeny tiny, like it's hard to see here, this little teeny tiny thing. And that's also what connects them electronically if you want to use if you don't want to have to wire them all up. But that, like, super easy to break. So not ideal. So what I would do is I would put some heavier mouse bites on there because I'd rather them be harder to break apart. Because I just cut them. You know, use some wire cutters or something to cut them if it came to it. And I might also put the diodes on the top side. Although, now that I think of it, that might be harder because that makes it a multi-layer PCB. I don't know. Diodes on the top side just because I'm not using RGBs, so switches that have the little spot for the RGB to poke through, or the LEDs to poke through, you can just slide your diode in there and it makes for a nice clean build. But I actually don't know if all switches have that, so that might be a bad idea. Okay, so red, yellow. Hello, Lorenzo. It's funny, my solder spool holder serves many purposes. So it's heavy because you don't want to pull solder and have it move your spool. You want it to stay in place and move unreel the solder. So it's heavy. And it has a little bit of a grippy bottom for same reason. But it's also made out of a ferrous material, which means magnets work with it. So I have a little magnetic base not gimbal. It's a ball tripod head mount thing that's attached to it and has my face cam mounted. So that's my face cam. But also, right now, it has my little helping hand tool magneted to it. So it's a multitasker. Alton Brown would be proud. Oops. Okay, and after I get these 5 done, I'm gonna stop and take a bite. Couple bites. Many bites. Okay. Trim these little bits off. Perfect. Okay, let's dump out the excess bits. I love it when places put effort into their french fries. And they're not just like, oh, we got some Cisco french fries that we put in a fryer for you. It's like, no. They are fresh cut or not. I don't really care because you're supposed to double fry french fries anyways to make them better. But then they throw like herbs on them and good salt and they try to differentiate them a bit. Okay. So. This is going to be a bit more challenging a part here because trying not to bump the helping hand tool. Those are not potentiometers. Those are simply rotary encoders. And what they kind of do is each, you rotate to the right, that activates one thing. You rotate to the left, that activates another thing. A lot of people, I have a couple of keyboards with rotary encoders on them. So I have one keyboard. Okay, so I have multiple keyboards with rotary encoders. On the one that has anything mapped to them, the right side I have mapped as a volume control, so it turns the volume up and down on the system, and then you push it and it's a mute button. And the left one doesn't do anything. It literally is not programmed or configured. And the other boards that I have with rotary encoders, I didn't bother even doing that because I don't use them. Some people have it mapped to like scrolling or page up, page down, or there's a bunch of uses. The Split KB blog or Thomas's website or something like that has I believe, a list of ideas. But for the most part, I think most people use them as some people use them as an Etch-a-Sketch too. So the right one controls vertical movement, the left one controls horizontal, or the other way around, and they can move the mouse pointer around with that, and then right click, left click if they want to. There's a bunch of different uses for that. So those are not potentiometers, but there are some, I don't know what the exact term they are, but it's like it's a slider, or maybe even you'd call it a linear encoder instead of a rotary encoder. But the idea is it's kind of like a slider on a mixer, where it's an absolute control versus a relative control. And some people will map those to volume and stuff like that. That's a lot harder because you have to somehow convey to the computer the absolute value. Whereas like a volume control for a rotary encoder, it's just you turn it right to go up and turn it left to go down, and it just spins forever. So there's no like anything. Like, that's hard to map. You can't really map that with an encoder or with a slider. Plus, if you unplug the keyboard and plug it back in, how do you communicate to the computer the absolute position of that slider? I'm sure people have done all those things and they've gotten it to work. And that's exciting because those, I love the idea of an absolute volume control on my keyboard. To be able to just have a slider that I can slide up and down. That's really cool, especially for like a Stream Deck. Because I could go, okay, well, here's the absolute slider for the music. Because right now I have two inputs feeding into OBS. I have the music, effectively, which really is just my desktop audio, but I have all other audio turned off. And then I have the microphone itself. So to be able to like have a slider on my desk that I could adjust those levels with directly without even having to find the UI element on my screen would be really cool. And maybe that is a thing that is currently, I don't want to say possible, because anything is possible if you write the code for it. But I mean like something that exists, right? Either some sort of HID plugin for OBS, and you encode the slider position as a HID. I don't know. I don't know enough about the underlying bits to know what would be required for that, but that's kind of the approach I would take, is to look for like something in HID that I could do that with. Because I know I could do it with just straight Bluetooth, because it'd just be another characteristic that you would read, but you'd have to write something to read it and then something to talk to OBS with. I don't know. And I may be wrong. Maybe you're talking about actual potentiometers on a keyboard, which I have not personally ever seen. I don't think. I strongly suspect you're talking about rotary encoders, though. So. I mean, maybe you could use a pot to control the brightness of your RGB or something. Oh, that's actually something. If I was going to program the other rotary encoder on my board, I would have the encoder control the RGB. So it, rotating it one way or the other would select the pattern, and then pushing it would turn it on and off. That's the other use I would use it for, but I haven't bothered. So I haven't used that keyboard in ages at this point. Okay. So let's see if I can mash this thing in here. Yeah, it's a mess, but it'll do. I'll try to clean it up with some Kapton tape. Tape the things coming across. But not right now. Right now, we're going to finish the rows. So we've got 4 wires to bring into the rows. So from the right side, we have row. So I numbered things in zeros from left to right, top to bottom. So this is column 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9. And then we got row 0, 1, 2, 3, or 0, 1, 2, and 3. Because this is a row on its own. Like I was saying the other day, I could probably do this matrix more efficiently in terms of the number of pins it uses on the controller. But I have plenty enough pins on the controller, so I don't need to worry about that, and it adds complexity that I'd rather not have. It's a real simple map it columns to rows. Done. Yeah, so from the left side, we've got row 0 and 1 on this pin and the next pin, and that's going to be red and yellow. They don't need to be very long wires because they can just come off of here. Okay, this is going to get a little tricky because I've got such a rat's nest going on here. Let's see, is that showing up in the camera? It is. There. Get it out of the way for a second. Oops. Come on. Get in there. There we go. Okay. Shove that in a little further. No, you can't use the Nice Nano with QMK at all, I don't think. You can use the Nice Nano with ZMK wired, because it works over USB. If you have a split keyboard, currently, you can't wire between the two halves. You can wire from the computer to the central side, which central is in Bluetooth kind of the like server or whatever you want to call it. It's the thing things connect to. I'm not doing a great job of describing that. It's the central. You've got central and peripheral. So the central side can be wired to the computer via USB. The peripheral side is peripheral to the central board, which is then peripheral to the computer. That's why it's a little confusing. That is always wireless at the moment. There's no support in ZMK for wired split. But a wired non-split, like, I can just plug this into a computer because there's only one controller. It's just basically you can't talk between two controllers right now. There are ways around that. So ZMK can use an IO expander, which, if you've been keeping up with things a little bit, the Zaphod, Pete is working on a Zaphod Lite, which instead of an embedded controller and all that good stuff is going to have an IO expander, which are fairly straightforward, easy to solder components. They are surface mount components, but they've got big legs. There's lots of space. It's not. They're pretty easy to solder. And then that connects via I2C. I believe might be SPI, but I2C, and an interrupt pin to the controller, which he's designing it around the Arduino Xiao footprint. And the main reason for that is, one, Arduino Xiaos are readily available. They're $5. They're supported by ZMK, so it's a great, like, I want a cheap ZMK wired keyboard option. They're great for that. And that's one of the things that's exciting to me about them, is because I want to have all of my future boards run on ZMK. It's not that I have anything against QMK, I just like ZMK better. And I want to, if I'm going to develop things for keyboards, I want to develop them in ZMK. And it's really hard to do both because of the way the licensing works and the clean room stuff with ZMK. The more I would learn about the internals of QMK, the less I'd probably be able to contribute to ZMK, because licensing, because someone might be like, hey, you stole that code from the QMK, and they might not be wrong, right? Like, I just pick one or the other, and I'm siding on ZMK for development. You know, obviously I have QMK boards, and I have at least one board that will only ever run QMK, because it's got an embedded controller, and I don't feel like ripping it all apart and whatever. But it's also, there's no features on that board. It's a keyboard. Doesn't have OLEDs, doesn't have LEDs, doesn't have wireless, it's just a keyboard. So QMK is pretty straightforward with it. But then also, Arduino just announced their wireless Xiao footprint board, which they haven't released any details of, as far as I know, in terms of pricing or availability or whatever, but it should be a drop-in replacement for the Xiao, the wired Xiao. And since it runs an NRF chip like the nice Nano does and the NRF Micro, should be able to just use it. Should just work with ZMK. You know, there needs to be the Nexus node built for the Xiao footprint, which might be something I do on Saturday, is put in a PR for that. But otherwise, it should just work. Okay, this is not soldered properly. Pro tip, don't try to solder from the top. Figure out how to get the wire through from the bottom and solder it on top. That's just much better. Oh well. I will know better for next time. So one thing that's exciting about the prospect of the Xiao Footprint Nano, or Xiao Footprint BTLE thing, is that it might be a little cheaper. I don't know. Who knows? It's just competition, you know? Up until a couple of days ago, nice nanos were not possible to get because they've been out of stock for a long time. They came out with a new batch of nice nano V2s, and a bunch of people bought them, and they ran out. Whereas hopefully the Xiao will be a little easier to keep in stock. I don't know, because Seeduino is just a bigger company than Nicell. Because Seeduino does a bunch of stuff. Nice. The creator of the Nice Nano, this is like his only product, as far as I know. I think he might sell stickers or something. I don't know, but it's just like a one person that's putting all this together and doing a fantastic job. I mean, I love the Nice Nano. Don't get me wrong. There's reasons I use them, but just having more options is better, I think. And yeah, you have stuff like the NRF Micro, but then you have to order all the components, and they're, you gotta solder them, and it's just a whole thing. Nice. Yeah, with the batch prior to this one, I bought 10 because I was like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to get more of them, and I don't want to run out. So I bought 10. And so that might be one why they went out so fast, is because people like me bought a bunch of them. I did not buy them to scalp. I have not sold a single one that wasn't part of a keyboard build. So I didn't buy them to scalp. And I don't like people who do. But I did buy a bunch of them. But I think there were probably people like me who were like, okay, well, I'm just going to buy a bunch of them because I don't know when I'm going to get the next one. So that's why the last batch ran out so fast, and this one hasn't run out yet, as far as I know. Plus, I think this batch, they were like, whoa, there's a lot of demand for these things. We can go to our manufacturer and be like, look, we need these fast. They're going to sell like hotcakes. Here's the proof. And so they got that much more of them. I don't know how many more. I don't know anything about the numbers of how many they sell or anything like that, but suffice to say, they sold a bunch of them last time, and they probably ordered more. Okay. Right side, we want green and violet. I don't think this is long enough for comfort. Yeah, why not? Let's do it. I can always replace it. Hello, Cyan Duck. 4,500? That's how many they sold, or that's how many they ordered? Ah, okay. Oh, that's right, because they had that contest to how many to guess. Well, that's a lot less than I was expecting. I was going to guess 10,000 in that box. But that doesn't mean that that's all they ordered. That just means that's all they had in that picture. But if you think about it, they're $20 a piece. Let's call it 20, 25 bucks. No, we'll call it 25. Makes the math easier. I don't know. $20 times 4,500. So that's 80,000 plus 20 times 5. So that's $90,000 retail cost of nice nanos in one pile. That's a lot. That's a lot. And kind of mind-blowing, considering that the nice nanos are really primarily for keyboards. Like, that's their, like, you know, they run Zephyr, they run ZMK, whatever. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with a nice nano. But I feel like their primary market is keyboards, and that they have enough of them to order $90,000 worth of them. That's just awesome. You know, especially with heavy competition from Pro Micros and stuff like that, because, you know, wireless keyboards are a niche of a niche. So, I mean, I feel like wireless keyboards aren't like completely obscure by any stretch, but they're not, you know, I bet you at least 10 times as many Pro Micros get sold for keyboard use. And definitely for non-keyboard use, because Pro Micros are like the standard Arduino controller. Okay. Green, violet. This one is definitely not long enough, so I'm gonna cut another piece. What I'm also really excited about is for the Raspberry Pi Pico for RP2040 specifically to get supported in Zephyr and ZMK, because that's just awesome. Because we already have things like the Raspberry Pi Micro, Raspberry Pi Pico, whatever. There's a Pro Micro RP2040. You know, Pro Micro footprint, a controller with an RP2040 on it. That already exists. It's not cheap, but it's not expensive either. I don't remember. But I have the RP2040 QT Pi, which is a Arduino Shao footprint mostly board that has a RP2040 on it. So we've already got both of those cases covered. And then, you know, the full size Raspberry Pi Pico is $4. And they're available by the thousand. I mean, they're not low in stock. So it's just, you know, it's really cool. Yeah, exactly, David. Think about split keyboards, right? You know, there's a reason why all split keyboards look kind of the same. You know, unibody splits look kind of like this. Regular splits look a lot like the corn. You know, there's just so many variations, or only so many variations on the same theme. And then there are people like me who are like, okay, well, I want your board but X, right? So that's what I've done. I want a ADUX, but I want it unibody, and I want the pinky to be in a more comfortable position for myself. I was going to say a more reasonable position to be kind of tongue-in-cheek about it, but no. Like, there's nothing unreasonable about where they put it. They just, you know, that's the choice that Tappy made, and I wanted to be different. But the tools that we have make it easy to change that, and I think that's awesome. It does really blur the lines of licensing and that sort of thing, though, when, like, because one of the things that I would like to do as an exercise is reproduce, say, the corn in ErgoGen. Now, my primary motivation for that is learning. Secondary motivation for that is, hey, Boostan, here's my contribution to your project. Here's an ErgoGen file that defines the corn. But once you have that, it wouldn't be that hard to go to so many other keyboards. right? To just kind of like, oh, well, I'm going to adjust the stagger here and change this, and boom, now I've got an ASU, right? But the ASU is a proprietary product. But, you know, like it's difficult. Um, and as someone who knows a lot of keyboard vendors and designers and stuff like that, the whole mess of licensing and stuff is not something I envy anybody about. Which is why I try to make it very clear where I'm getting my inspiration from, and if I am directly cribbing someone else's things, to try to avoid any, like, maybe not legal issues, because maybe I am violating someone's license, and I'll change that, right? But the intent was not to violate the license. It's more like, I really like what you've got here, I'm going to modify it. And I think that's kind of the spirit of open source. But I also respect that people want their, you know, they want to keep control on their designs, you know? That's why I changed the name completely. So there's no, you know, I'm not going to call it I'm not going to call this anything that's a Dux, right? Like, I jokingly call it the Unidux. But it's not. Even though it is directly, or a direct derivation from the ADUX, it is not an ADUX. And as much as I want to respect Tappy and be like, this is the heritage, or this is the lineage of this keyboard, I don't want to try to claim any affiliation or, like, what am I trying to say? Endorsement. You know, like, oh, this is an authorized... I don't know. Anyways, that stuff gets really messy, and I just prefer to be like, hey, you know, we're all in this together as much as we can be, and I want to respect your art and all that, so... Yes, I am Duck, and that's difficult, right? Because the ASU is not a released product either. But is the ASU really that different from a Korn with an extra thumb key and harder pinky stagger? Or harder stagger? And I'd say the finished product is... Like, I guess it kind of depends on if you treat the finished product as the thing you're selling, or the thing you're bringing, or the design. And some people think both. And I would agree with those people. But I would also agree that with someone who would say that, well, this is an obvious, you know, parallel, like, if someone were to sit in a box, or sit, you know, it's an obvious derivation from another place, or something like that. Like, it's almost like saying, like, here, I have a patent for a light bulb, and someone else goes, I have a patent for 2 light bulbs. Or I have a patent for a light bulb, but it uses green glass instead of white glass, or something, you know. And I don't want to trivialize the work that gets done on keyboards, but, like I said, this looks like every keyboard, every unibody split you've seen. Like, I could put my Zaphod right next to this, and you'd be like, oh, it's like a Zaphod with finger splay, and you would be correct, because a lot of my inspiration from wanting to build this came from using my Zaphod. So I don't know. It's all messy, and I just try to swim in the ocean and try to be helpful, and whatever. I don't know. Words. I want everyone to be successful. And I guess I should also put out there a bias note. I'm a moderator on the Split KB Discord. And I have done commission work for Thomas in the past for builds. You've seen them on stream. So, just full disclosure. But that also puts me in a bit of a weird position because I'm supporting him, but I'm also doing my own thing, which you could maybe see as competition. I don't know. But I'm also not selling things. It all gets very messy. At the end of the day, if it came to it, I'd just be like, okay, well, I want to do my thing, and if you don't want me to be a mod, like, whatever, it's fine. I don't think it'll happen. Yeah, it like, to me, a lot of what makes the ASU attractive is that it's going to be a boxed product. And the layout is less important to the value proposition. Like, what am I selling? Oh, I guess a great example I'll bring up is I used to do a lot of work with Puppet, some configuration management software for servers. And I also used to do a lot of work with NetApp servers, which are big hard drives, basically. They're big file servers. And I wanted to be able to configure my NetApp using Puppet. Okay. So NetApp has an API. It has, you can SSH to it and run commands and stuff like that, but it also has an HTTP API. And that's awesome. Except at least their Ruby, I don't know about their other SDK libraries, but their Ruby SDK library is behind a paywall and a very strict license. So you can't redistribute their API connector. And what I mean by API connector is literally like a thing that says like, say you want to change the size of a volume in NetApp, on a NetApp, there's an HTTP call that you can do that with. And this makes that so that is a runnable thing in Ruby. But all it's doing is wrapping the HTTP API. It's just a wrapper around an HTTP API. But you have to have like a NetApp contract and stuff like that to even get access to this. So it makes it hard to distribute, say, a Puppet module that utilizes this library, because I have to say, well, you have to go download this library and copy it into here and do all this instead of having this just like drop-in thing that just works and does what you want. And my argument to them would be like, hey, is this the thing you're selling, or is the hardware the thing you're selling? You should make this library open source, or make the API itself freely publishable, and then people can write their own libraries or something like that. Because that's not, that API is not what you're selling. Like, and maybe even it is, because you have to license it to enable it or something on the server, but the connector to be able to write software against it isn't what you're selling. So, like, in a way, making it easier to integrate this API library could help you sell things better, because, like, oh, look, we've got a Puppet module for this. And I get there's some amount of, like, they want to have control, and I was looking at the code, and I'd be like, well, I might be a little embarrassed to publish this code, because it wasn't great, but it's an HTTP. It's such a simple, trivial layer on top of this. You're spending $150,000 on a server. I shouldn't have to jump through so many hoops to get the thing to talk to it. I don't know. Yeah, intent doesn't matter to the law at all. Yeah. Although it kind of does in civil law. I'm not a lawyer, so just throwing this out there. It kind of does in civil law, because civil law is not a guilty, not guilty thing. Civil law is a It's a spectrum. It's a, what am I trying to say? It's about like damages and stuff. It's you know, I can sue someone for $10 million and they can be like, okay, well, we're at fault here, whatever, but your damages are only this amount or whatever. It's a scale. Because you don't even have to say, like, I'm guilty. You just say, like, oh, okay, well, this is the fine we're going to pay, or this is, I don't know. It's weird. So intent does matter there, because if, say, I violate your copyright or violate your patent, if you can prove that it was in bad faith, right? Like, oh, hey, look, I gave this person a copy of the docs for this thing and they came out with a clone of it the next day, or, you know, espionage, you know, industrial espionage versus, you know, oh, hey, like, they came up with this independently or whatever, like, yeah. I mean, Tynan, you say that, but patents are a complicated thing. Because patents are there to protect inventors from people stealing their ideas and running with them. Without, you know, royalties or whatever. But when they're applied to liberally, or I don't know, they're different. Their patents are hard. Like, I support patents, but at the same time, I'm just like, really? That's patented? Like, someone has a patent for that? And then places get like these patent portfolios that, you know, they just use for suing people. I don't know. Okay, this is tough. What am I gonna do about this? You might say, why didn't I put like a crimp-on connector on here? And I'd say that's way too much, way overkill. And also, I would actually very much love to have a JST crimping tool and kit and all of that, but I have not been able to find any, because I would love to put JST connectors on these little friggin' batteries, because otherwise I have to do stuff like this, and I hate it. So if you know where I can get a JST crimping tool, please, by all means. I mean, even soldering these little wires is sketchy. Okay, let me just, before I heat shrink this on here, time to stand. I've been standing for an hour and a half, Siri. Come on. Quick measure the voltage across this. so that we know we've got a connection, and we do. Fire up the old heat shrink gun. Yep. There was a board that, if you follow the evolution, the story, it was a big, long circle to come back around to, this is basically a Kyria. But the guy made basically a Kyria. And didn't even give a shout out to it, except for like in the blog post, like in the official description of it, it was like heavily inspired by this, and this, but not the Kyria, even though it was a Kyria, like 100% a Kyria. You look at that, there's no mistaking it for a Kyria. Yay, heat shrink. Yeah, I didn't want to name the board, but yeah, that's the board. And the sad thing, it was kind of a cool board. Yeah, just Google for Splitty Boy, and you'll at least, like, if you Google for Splitty Boy, you'll find the Reddit post, probably, and the website and stuff. You won't find there's no real public drama, or public, I don't want to say drama, but public discourse about the Splitty Boy. Most of that was done in private. But ultimately ended up sending a cease and desist to the creator of the Splitty Boy to be like, dude, fuck off. That's my keyboard you just copied. I say that, and it was probably much more professionally worded than that. Right? It's a Kyria. But if you look at the history, like, it was a long route to come back around to, oh, this is what I designed. So if you looked at that by itself in isolation, you might see great. But if you looked at it as like, you could look at it as someone who was like, I'm going to make up a backstory to why I designed my own copy of the Kyria. I don't know. That's where that kind of stuff gets really murky. And ultimately, if the cease and desist hadn't worked out, there would probably have been there might have been a lawsuit filed, and then a judge and or jury would have to decide, you know, what the motivation was, and, you know, was it kind of a parallel evolution sort of thing, or was it, yeah. But I will say that that is one negative of capitalism in general, is that, like, someone makes something, and somebody else makes a similar thing, and they have to be careful, because they might be infringing on someone else's patents, and then if they are, they have to either choose to pay for the patent to be able to then make, like, an updated version of it, or they just don't, and then we're stuck with whatever the original patent holder came up with. So, like, say... Shit, I can't even think of anything. But say I had a keyboard, and I was like, okay, great, but what if we put, you know, a turbocharger in it? And they were like, nah, I don't want to do that. And I've got a patent, so you can't do that without paying me royalties, and I'm not going to license it, and all this. Then you're stuck without a turbocharger on the keyboard. A really bad analogy, but I don't know. And especially software patents. Like software patents, I mean, 15 years is an eternity in software. I mean, the iPhone hasn't existed for 15 years. Right? Like, an eternity. So to be able to say, hey, you know, that thing that you've patented that you have software for, I can't do a similar thing because you have a patent for it. Kind of sucks. I guess a good example relevant in our world is patents on key switches. So Chalk, or Kale, has a patent on the Chalk keys, basically, or switches. And in a lot of ways, they're not great. People want to make better ones, but they can't without paying exorbitant licensing fees to Kale, or potentially, I don't know. It's hard for an independent person to come in and be like, hey, look at this, like, new and improved Chalk that I made, because they have to go through all this process to get the ability to use the patent, and it's just not worth doing. So meanwhile, we're stuck with Chalks because nobody can make an improvement on it because Kale has the patents. And that's not to call out Kale specifically. This is just a problem with patents in general. Because if you look at, like, what happened when Cherry, at the MX patent ran out. Now we have tons of selection of Cherry switches. Or of MX compatible switches. And I think that has been wonderful for the mechanical keyboard community and hobby, and, you know, in a perfect world for the world as a whole, if people realize that, hey, look, we can build our own keyboards. We don't have to be stuck with whatever shipped with our box. Yeah, David, and that's what's called prior art. It's like, look, here, I published this thing a long time ago that talks about this design, and then here's your thing that says 6 months later, you're like, I'm going to build this thing, and, you know, it gets very murky. Yep, not available for small people. Like, there's a reason that I use chill hop as my background music. Because it is trivial for me to go and use their music as my background music. I go on their website, I sign up, I link my YouTube account to their thing, and then I put a credit in the comments, or in the description, and that's pretty much it. But if I wanted to do, say, a different kind of streaming, where we talked about, maybe it was a listen party or something like that. We're all listening to the same album. Maybe I'm even playing it for us, and we're just kind of jamming to it. I can't do that. And to be able to get the licensing to be able to do that, it'd be like pulling teeth. Just not worth doing. Right? So unless I'm part of a big media conglomerate that's going to do that as like a show, and they already have the license deals and stuff. I mean, look at Beavis and Butthead. The reason Beavis and Butthead DVDs, and this is MTV. The reason Beavis and Butthead's DVD releases don't have any of the music videos on them is because MTV had the licensing deal to be able to play those music videos on the air, and so they did, but they didn't have DVD distribution rights. This is MTV, Viacom, one of the biggest media companies in the world, and they can't negotiate a content deal for a DVD thing. Like, it's just ridiculous. Hello, Maker Jake. I mean, I believe the cherry patents have expired, so the molds aren't public domain, but those patents are public domain now, I think. The molds would be copyrighted, but not patented, and that's a different thing. Because that's like a CAD file or something like that, effectively. Whatever. This is a rabbit hole we've all gone down. Let's think about something else. What's everyone doing this weekend? I know this is massive overkill for heat shrink tubing. I could probably do this with a hairdryer, but you use what you've got. I don't have a hairdryer, but I do have a hot air rework station. Okay, so put the switch in here. You know, I should start 3D printing bricks. And buy a little spot of land somewhere and build a house out of 3D printed bricks. And when you say working on a chalkboard, you mean other than the 46 you already have? I say not 46, like 46 chalkboards, but the Maker Jake 46 or whatever it's called. The one that's in IC. So pretty sure negative is on this side. If only I had another one of these to reference. Positive on the left, negative on the right. Okay. All right, magic smoke time. No magic smoke. We do indeed, I don't know if you can see it, but I have a blinky blue LED right there. Means it is in its firmware, or its bootloader mode. I'm gonna shut that off. So this is all wired up now, ready for firmware. In order to do the firmware, I'm going to sit at my desk, so I need to move this camera and a couple of other things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few minutes. We're going to not shut the stream down, but we're just going to transition to the stream starting soon. Unless someone wants to quick make up a be right back kind of thing. I'm going to adjust the setup here a little bit, so the camera's in the right place, mic's in the right place, desk is in the right place, and finish my lunch real quick. So call it 5:10 and I'll be back. Yes, hot glue, at least for the moment, because it comes off very easily. It's easy to apply, and it'll hold it in place. It's fine. It's just a prototype. It's gonna be hard to smash it on there, though. I'm a little worried about breaking wires, but we shall see. So let me get some stuff pulled up here. Oops. Go into OBS. It's not what I'm looking for. Sorry. Yeah, someday I might do one of those carrier board things for hand wiring, and then make a little 3D printed shelf for it, and that can somehow slot into this. But I will more than likely be well done with this whole design process by the time I feel like doing that. So it probably won't happen. I'm lazy. If hot glue works, then hot glue works. Okay. So you might notice, or you might recognize this as the banana build. And you would be correct. So we've got the input GPIOs, all this stuff. Basically what we need to do is kind of copy paste this and put it into a shield. Is this plugged in? For this new board. It is plugged in, good. But actually, now that I think of it, we're not going to copy paste this because I want to do it from, I was going to say from the corn, but that's a split board. That's probably going to be much more complicated. I'm going to look at the Zaphod. So what we need to do then is, let's get out of this. Oops. Undo. Control A, D. No, Control J. There. Control B, D. Okay. Tmux. Zaphod config. What? Some reason I am having a Doom Emacs issue. Okay, let's try this again. There, that worked. Okay. Zaphod config, boards, arm, Zaphod, and then what we want is the kconfig.board, kconfig, zaphod.dts. Yes, okay. So we want the kscan. Here. Okay. If only we had a thing over here to tell us. So config boards. Shields, kitchen ducts, no, uni kitchen, whatever. Boards. And actually, I am gonna paste this here and just delete the stuff I don't need. Then I want banana.conf. Let's see, we'll just call this unikitchen.conf and have nothing in there, I guess. And then I need the key map file. And we'll change this because I'm just going to copy, well, for this, no. We want zapha.keymap. Basically verbatim. Because this is a 34 key layout board, so is the Zaphod. I want all the same things, combos, key map, whatever, and we're gonna set up so in the keyboard stuff, I see, okay, so that's how you do split shields versus unibody shields, okay. We need to do this matrix transform. Yes, so we need to do the matrix transform. And I need to remember that the matrix transform is backward. So, looking at it from the top, call 0 is on the right. So this is going to be 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Row 0, but we'll get there. But this looks like it's pretty straightforward here. RC macro. So that needs to be in the overlay file. Whoops. So we need to include dt bindings / cmk / matrix transform.h. Then cmk. Okay. I think that's all I need. So let's do this. so this is not direct, it's matrix. And then we change... Aha! So we need the diode direction. So the diode direction is row to call on this one. So we need diode direction equals... And I say on this one, I mean on these things. The PC babies. You wire up to the column and the diode goes out to the... Or wire up to the row, whatever. It's row to call. I remember because we had to change that the last time when I did the abomination because I was using the corn and I had to change the key map or the diode direction in QMK to row to call. So we're going to do row to call like that. Okay. And then call GPIOs equals and then we get our GPIOs here. So we've got our call GPIOs. Except that doesn't tell us what number it is, but that's fine. Because we look at it from here. So this is upside down. From... Can you see this? This is upside down from what this here has. Yeah, you can't even see that. I need to figure out the mouse pointer thing because I'm constantly gesturing to stuff on screen with the mouse pointer and you can't see it. Sorry. So, we have this is one, 0, and then we skip. Well, let's do it from the bottom. So we've got 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and then we've got 10, 16 because that makes sense. 1, 4, 1, 5. 1, 8, 1, 9, 2, 0. Okay. So this should make it pretty easy to set this up. So call GPIOs we have. And they just go in order, right? Whoops. Okay, so we've got pro, micro, micro, call 0 is 10, GPIO active high. No, I think what we want here is GPIO active high, GPIO pull down. Because that way it's inactive by default because it's pulled down, but then it gets pulled up when it gets connected to the row GPIO. Okay, so we've got 10 rows, or 10 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we should just be able to go in here and then change that to 16, 14, 15, 18. These numbers are all over the place. 19. That doesn't seem right. No, because it's not right. Because rows. So this goes 10, 16, 14, 15, 18. And then we go to the other side. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we need to go top down. So 5, 6, that's convenient. 7, 8, 9. And then add a semicolon there, and we've got our called GPIOs. Now do row GPIOs equals pro micro. So we've got row 0 is 19, GPIO active high. Excuse me. And so then row 1 is 20. Row 2 okay, I'm gonna trust what I wrote down here and we'll figure it out if we need to change things. Row 2 is 4, row 3 is 3. Okay, so then we need to, so that should be all we need to do to tell ZMK the matrix stuff. Then what we need to do is add the matrix transformation. Okay, so we go here. Default transform key map transform 0. And then we do compatible equals ZMK matrix transform. Columns equals 10. Rows equals 4. Map equals, and then this is where it gets fun. So let's just go across the top here from right to left. So column 0, column 1, 2, 3, 4. So it should be okay, it's row column. So these should all be 0. RC 0, 0. There's 10 columns, so 2, 3, 4. Let's do this the other way around. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Go back to the beginning of that row. So it's 0, 0, 0, 1. 2. Now, all of these are basically going to be exactly what you expect. Because they are exactly what you expect. The only reason we're doing this is because otherwise we have to add in nuns on these outer 3 thumb keys that don't exist because they exist in the matrix if you made a matrix out of all this. So then this is going to be okay. So then what we have is RC 0, 1, 2, 3. Or sorry, not column 0, 1, 2, and then this starts at 3, 4, 5, 6. So we want 3. Delete the rest of these. Then go 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I think that's what we need. Okay. Okay, now to remember how I did this last time. Because I know I did it differently than I was really supposed to. Okay, that's how I did it. So west build dash P dash B nice nano V2 dash D shield equals unikitchen dash DZMK config equals workspace config. We'll see if this works. Okay. Unable to parse input tree. Syntax error. Okay, and that's on line 535. So it doesn't like my matrix transform. Why? So those don't have to be comma separated. And it looks like they can be on different lines. I see what I did wrong. I forgot in device tree you've got different ways of representing numbers and strings and all that good stuff. I have columns equals 10, rows equals 4. This needs to be... Okay. Surround with that. Why is that not working? Okay, I'll check that later. Those need to be that. Okay, now let's go back and try it again. Oops. Okay. Reference to non-existent or silent or non-existent node or label pro micro. And I kind of suspected that might happen because this should probably be pro micro D instead of just pro micro. I think this documentation might be a little outdated. So we'll change all of those. So S/pro micro /pro micro D/G. Let's see if that changes it. Child specifier for node connector D property map GPIO. Okay. So one of these pins is not in here. Is what it's saying. Child specifier for node kscan 0. And this probably... It's the hex 13. I don't know. Does not appear in GPIO map at connector D. So it's because this only goes, it doesn't go at 18, 19, 20. No, it does go to 18, 19. It doesn't go to 20. No, that's Arduino header. Ignore that. So it only goes 1 through 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 16, 14, 15. 10, 16, 14, 15. It doesn't include these 3 pins. Probably because those are for SPI or I2C. So I don't know if I can use those pins. That's frustrating. Because where do I put those? Because I've got... Come on, where's that? Whoops, that was what I wanted. Arduino 18, 19, 20, 21. Oh, because those are analog only? No. I mean, I guess I could use 0 and 1 here. Why are 19, 20, and 21 not on there? I'm going to ask Pete about this at some point. But today, we're just going to move those on this board here. Okay. Nope. Okay. Thought maybe there'd be some discussion about it somewhere, because I'm sure there's a good reason for it. I just don't know what that reason is. But it means I need to take these 2 wires here and move them to these first 2 pins over here, which just feels wrong to me, but whatever. So we're going to change row 0 and row 1. This is pin 0, pin 1 to row 0, row 1. Because when flipped over, row 0 is on top, row 1 is on bottom. Okay. And I gotta wait for the thing. So change the firmware here. So this would be row 0, row 1. Would be just 0, 1. And while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to ask Pete in Discord. Or I'm going to ask, not necessarily Pete, but just in Discord in general. Let's see, that's saying the same thing now. Property GPIO map at connector D 0x12. So that's what, 18? Yeah, it's saying 18 is not in there either. Which is true. It only goes up to 16. Oops. Okay. So I have to move a third one, I guess. So 18 is column 4. And we're just going to put it over here. On pin 2. That's kind of messy now. This grand scheme, grand plan of things is no longer correct. So this is then column, that's pin 2. Okay, so that's all 16. Oh no, that's not all 16 pins. That's 14 pins. Oh, but that's all 14 pins because we skip a couple of numbers because there's no 12 and 13 on this either. It goes 10, 14. There's no 11, 12, or 13. That's really bizarre. There's almost certainly a good reason for it. I don't know what that reason is, but I asked in the hardware channel in ZMK if there's a reason and what that reason is. So, soldering iron's heated up. I'm going to move these real quick. Be right back. Okay, so we're back. So I was just thinking, this is a really good lesson in why you should do a hand-wired prototype first. Because if I had, excuse me, if I had, oh wait, hang on. I got a response from Pete. Okay, so update. They just refactored that recently, and apparently it is now has that's been fixed. It goes up to 21. But I'm not entirely certain how to get my local build environment to upgrade. I think I just need to do a get pull in here. I don't know. I'm not going to mess around with it. And I already changed the solder. So, or I already resoldered the thing. So, we're going to just use it as is right now and try it. And I didn't do a smoke test. No smoke. Okay. Ooh, I should get a USB adapter. Okay, well, the DTS compiled, so the rest of this should work. Then we plug it in and see if it actually works. So I think I might have cut myself off mid-sentence. One nice thing about doing this as a hand wire is I find out issues like this during the hand wire build, not during the other stuff. With not finding out after I have run off 5 PCBs prototypes that I have the pinout incorrect and need to redo it, because I can fix it, just cut the traces and bodge wire, but this is easier, and then I don't waste a bunch of PCBs. We're gonna pull shit. Come on. Oh, because I'm already in here. Oh. F. No, let's push. Fetch. What remotes do we have? Okay, I'm gonna do this on the command line. So what I'm trying to do here, what I'd like to do, is get remote-v, get pull or fetch upstream. The music died, so let's change the music. Fall 2016 chill hop. All right. So get rebase. And that's going to complain about that. Oh. That's not right. Okay. I need to do some merge conflict work, so I'm just going to check out upstream main. Okay, and then we're going to Docker, or yeah, we're going to West build that. I really need to fix that Docker compose PR and get it into mainstream or mainline. Actually, what I should do here is West updates. This is the fun part about building keyboards. Dealing with all the firmware stuff. Compilation terminated due to fatal errors. And that's not even my code.
See, the fun thing is, I don't think this is my fault. And I don't know what's wrong with it. It says build is passing, so presumably this is my fault somehow. I'm building with a pristine workspace. This -p flag is pristine build directory. Okay, so it's failing on the key map. But how? So what I'm suspecting here is that the lengths of the ZMap key or ZMK key map layers, layer child, something there's a, it's not consistent. Error, transformed layer undeclared here, not in a function. Expected before numeric constraint. Layer child lang. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that's 34. transformed layer undefined here. That's the issue. DT bindings, matrix, transform.h. Thanks, Miroslav. I'm close. I think it's something with this key map transform. For fun, I'm going to change this to map equals RC 00. It's a single key matrix. Why not? We'll get there. While I'm waiting for that, I'm going to Uni Kitchen key map, and we're going to change all of these. Wait. Hell is this? Well, there's your problem. Hell is that? Looks like I accidentally pasted a bunch of crap at the end of that. So that's probably what happened. Okay, config.shield. Overlay. Okay, we're gonna try it again. I'm pretty sure we're close. Few more minutes of screwing around with this and I'll have a functioning firmware. I can flash onto the ZM onto the board, and then Bob's your uncle. Then I get to go on vacation. I'm not gonna lie, my confidence level on whether or not I just fixed this is fairly low. But I did change something in that file. There was junk at the end. I don't know where it came from. Because I would have expected that issue to crop up as a syntax error in the device tree stuff. I don't know. Computers, man, I don't even know. Well, we definitely made it further than we have in the past, because I was getting warnings back in the step 37 before. Now we're at 163, so confidence is getting higher. You know? These little stands are cool. They're just, I don't know. I like them. Sorry, kind of a non sequitur. I just happen to have this in my hand on my desk and just kind of fiddling with it, and so it just came up. We're at 3 hours. This is probably going to be the last thing I do for the stream. We're getting close, though. I think confidence is actually now fairly high. And if you're wondering why this is taking so long, it's because I'm running it in a Docker container that is running an x86 version of the Docker container, and I'm on an M1 Mac. Like, it would probably be faster for me to compile this and build this on my Raspberry Pi. Well, actually, no, that's right. Because the ZMK container, development container, doesn't support AMD or ARM 64 yet, I don't think. So, anyways, that's why it's so slow. I'm just haven't gotten around to like figuring out how to improve that speed. All right, I am now nearly 100% confident that this worked. So let's open app build Zephyr. There's our file, or our firmware. So I'm gonna plop this into my nice Nano here. ZMK.uf2 over to the nice Nano. Researching beaches. Like, what kind of researching beaches? Okay. Do we have a functioning keyboard? We do, but for some reason my enter combo isn't working, but that's fine. We have a functioning keyboard. There is more that needs to be done to this to make it actually usable. I need to, somehow compress the nice Nano into there or something. I need to test things because certainly something is gonna not work. But we have all the parts here of the keyboard, and they're mostly put together. So this is exciting. Actually, you know what? Before we even do that, let me... Is this on? Okay. But it's not in pairing mode, I don't think. Let's see. Bluetooth preferences. Can I pair kitchen unibody and presumably, since ZMK just did a bunch of work on stuff. Oh, wait, I know why. So this is backward. And that switch doesn't work. That switch doesn't work either. A couple of switches don't work. But it's backward. But that's fine. That's either we need to do the matrix transform or I screwed up the row GPI opens and stuff. But it's backward. That's what the problem is. It's getting there. It's getting there. So what I want to do is Saturday, we'll come in here, we'll fix up the firmware, get it so it's got the correct pins, all of that stuff. Then I want to fix a couple of things on the ErgoGen file for this board as it currently exists. I want to, so the fixes are, I want to make a hole for the nice Nano instead of chopping it out here. I want to make a hole for the power switch instead of chopping it out here. I want to get the ergogen stuff so that it is has the correct columns and rows. Net, that's what they call it. Call net and row net are correct on the ergogen thing. And then maybe we'll try to start working on a PCB. Seeing how to make ergogen do the thing. It is not the stand but the light G-Chock? Sorry, I don't understand what you're asking. Ergogen, power switch, USB hole, row net, call net. I use I have 7 combos defined. So these 2 keys, so the top column, hang on, the top column keys, top outer column keys, 2 of them, there's curly braces, square brackets, parentheses. And on the other side are the close, so parentheses, square brackets, curly braces. And then these top 3 keys here are for enter. Because I kind of see I need 5 keys other than the 3x5 alphas. I need enter, escape, backspace, tab. Wait. Enter, escape, backspace, tab, and space. Right? But I only have 4 thumb keys. So I was like, okay, well, what would I be willing to combo? And originally I had tried comboing a bunch of different ways. I had vertical combos for things, which works okay on this, but it's a little awkward because what I was doing was like, instead of pushing between the keys, I was kind of laying my finger flat, so it was a lot more movement of my fingers. And then sometimes it wouldn't fire. But then I started doing horizontal combos on the top row, because the top row I don't use there are only a few keys, or only a few bigrams that cause me problems when I'm using the top row for combos, and that's CR. So on this is, I use Dvorak, so you've got F, G, C, R, L as the top keys. So CR, I use a fair amount for words like script. So one of my domains is scriptkitchen.com. So I have script that I use a fair amount. My password has CR in it. Or no, RC rather in it. So that sometimes messes me up. Really, it's mostly just the CR bigram or RC bigram that messes with me. And I can just change, script. Okay, I don't type it often enough that it's a huge problem. And it just manifests as a bracket instead of CR or RC. And I go back and fix it. It's just a typo, right? I could probably change combo term or something like that. Whatever. There's a bunch of different things I could do. It's such a minor problem. And as far as for my password, I kind of want to change my password anyways. So I will at some point do that, and I'll just make sure it doesn't have that bigram in it. But so far, that's the only thing I've had issues with. Because like P and Y, because like on Dvorak, these top 3 keys are single quote, comma, and period, or period, comma, I don't remember. My fingers remember, but I don't. So those aren't bigrammed. and then P dot or P dot or dot P would be the only bigram I have here. And then I don't use bigram of P and Y or YP like as a combo, so that doesn't matter. So it's mostly because then you got FGCRL, and the combination that I run into the most is R and C. So I don't know. It's things, but that's all I have for combos. I was trying to do enter on the home row for a while, and I might still move it back to the home row, but on the top row it's fine. The problem with using the home row for literally anything other than keys on Dvorak is that Dvorak puts all your really commonly used keys on the home row. So you've got NTS or HTNS, right, on the home row. So you've got N and T, very common bigram in English. T and S, very common bigram in English. So trying to use those for anything, it's just asking for misfires like crazy. Like, I briefly had enter on NT, and I took it off like 10 minutes later because just typing for those 10 minutes was just, it was a disaster. I couldn't do it. So this is the combo setup I've gotten to. You know, I don't use a ton of combos because I haven't really had a need for them. And I don't see myself going smaller to need things like, you know, combos for alphas or something like that. Everything I need, I have access to for the most part. So it's worked. Anyways, so Saturday we'll fix up, you know, lingering issues here with keys. I've got a switch that's popped up a little bit. This is not super high quality build quality. I mean, it's a shitty it's 3D printed. It's, yeah. And 3D printing can be great, don't get me wrong. You know, these stands are very sturdy, but these stands are not 1 millimeter thick piece of plate that's spanning, you know, 8 inches or something like that. It's just prototype grade. But we'll get that fixed, get the firmware fixed, and then work in ErgoGen on Saturday. And ErgoGen, you know, getting the little bits, the little quality of life pieces in there, and then maybe see about doing some PCB stuff. Yeah. Just writing this down so I know. Fix mechanical problems with board. Fix firmware. All right, cool. So got my little sticky note with the plan for Saturday right there. Meanwhile, I'm gonna go to beautiful Maupin, Oregon. Maupin, Oregon. Which, if you look at it from here, it doesn't look super great. But, I posted a little bit about it recently. So this is not actually in Maupin. This is much closer to High Valley, but this is taken from the bridge in Maupin. It's just beautiful. And this, I'm actually staying in this hotel right here on the right. So that's where I'll be for the next 3 nights. I don't know which room, but probably one of those that you can see, because my room has a a vaulted ceiling in it. But it's right on this beautiful river. It's got this big lawn out back. I've got a balcony. I'm looking forward to this. Yep, the problem is that I type too fast. I type too fast and I linger too much on keys. I don't staccato quite enough, but that's just 20 years of typing lazily, you know, and not having to worry about keys that perform multiple functions, whether you hold them or press them. I've only been doing that for about a year now with home row mods, and I'm still getting used to that. Like I try to type certain things and I don't hold it long enough or whatever. But for the most part, home row mods, putting them on the low row has helped all of those things. But yeah. Okay, so I am going to call the stream here. Thank you all for hanging out. This was fun, finishing up the board. I'm super excited that it's probably 95% of the way there now in terms of like soldering work and stuff. Like, there are a couple switches that aren't working. I don't know if they're just not socketed in correctly or something, but we'll figure it out. And then figure out the row, column, whatever. Figure out the matrix stuff. And now I know what it is. So it's this. I know exactly what it is. These are backward. Instead of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it should be 9 through 0. So if I could just, and I'm sure I can do this with Emacs foo, grab each of these as an atom and then sort the atoms the reverse order. That's all I would need to do, and this would be fine. But yeah, that's all it is I have these backward. I could also just switch these, because I can just reverse this somehow. I don't know. My mods are on the bottom row here. So this is meta or option or alt, depending on who you're talking to. Can you see that? You can. Okay. This is the, meta, control, shift, and command or GUI. And the same thing is mirrored the other direction on the other hand. It makes typing all caps things a little bit annoying at times. In QMK, there's a way to, people have come up with this idea of like caps word. Instead of caps lock, you say caps word, and it has like you basically enable caps lock until a space bar is pressed. And so it'll, so you don't have to turn caps lock off explicitly. You just hit space bar and it shuts it off. I think that's a fantastic idea. And they made it generic so that it's not even for caps, it's for any mod. But I don't know if that's been implemented in ZMK. I don't know if I want to implement that on my board. It depends. Like if I was doing a whole lot of C programming and using a lot of capital letters for constants and stuff like that, I might. And I mean, you're looking at a pile of constants and stuff over here, so you might be like, well, you do enough. This is nothing. This is a very small amount of constants and capital letters. Most of the programming work I do is not using all caps or even a lot of caps at all. So, I don't know. Anyways, I'm just rambling. I appreciate all the questions though. I love this discourse, this, discussion, because it's one of the ways I learn things, especially about what people know or don't know, or questions they might have, or thoughts they might have that are different than mine, whatever. I love that. I don't know, it's just cool. I like this forum concept of this. format for things. Words. I'm tired. Well, I'm not tired. My brain is tired. I am going to go rest my brain and stare at a river after driving for 3 hours. See y'all on Saturday. I'm excited to finish this up and work on some other stuff. Bye.